autonomic nervous system controls involuntary physiological process. You have no control over that. Hello HTV boxing fans. So I usually like to do commentaries, sometimes for fun, sometimes for information purposes, and then sometimes for educational purposes. Today is one of those that are for educational purposes. And then of course it's piggybacking off the Garcia and Davis fight. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of talks. And I feel like this is one of the things that it will benefit boxing loving fans to understand what actually goes on. And of course, I'm talking about the liver shot. The liver shot. I'm going to talk about the liver shot, a little bit of the physiology behind it, the anatomy behind it. And then, of course, we will compare it to some other fights that have happened. This is not the first time this has happened. But before I go on, I just want to put a disclaimer out there that this is not a medical advice. Also, for those that know me, I'm not doing this in the capacity of a medical expert. I'm doing it as a boxing fan. All right, so let's get right into it. Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis just fought over the weekend. And of course, it was an exciting fight. Everyone was looking forward to it. Personally, I predicted that a knockout for Davis in round 9. Davis decided to earn it early in round 7, which is okay. I knew that he was going to knock Ryan Garcia out. But the way things played out, some people felt that this shouldn't have been a knockout. Ryan Garcia should have been able to continue. And yes, sometimes if you watch it, it may appear so. And also because of the delayed reaction, which I will explain. But we know that there is something called the liver shot. Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Tank Davis is not the first time this has happened. Actually, that's exactly what Bernard Hopkins did to Oscar De La Hoya. Ironically, that's the exact same shot Ryan Garcia gave to Luke Campbell. So this is not new. Oh, and then recently I saw Richard Comey and Jose Ramirez, and that was a shot that literally put the brakes on Comey. So the liver shot is a thing. We've known that it has happened. I've given you examples. So Tank Davis and King Rai were not the first one to make it happen. So what actually happens with a liver shot? Let's talk a little bit of an anatomy. So the abdomen is divided in medicine into 4 main quadrants. You have your left lower quadrant, you have your right lower quadrant, you have your left upper quadrant, and then you have your right upper quadrant. The liver shot is always there in the right upper quadrant. The liver as an organ sits right behind the rib cage in the right upper quadrant. So what happens when somebody gets hit with a liver shot? So when you get hit with the liver shot, it goes through your ribs and the liver is right there. And that force actually activates a nervous system. And that is because the liver is encapsulated by a tissue, and that particular tissue or capsule is innervated. In medicine, when we say something is innervated, it means that the nerve kind of controls it. The nerve controls it. So this capsule is innervated by the autonomic nervous system. In particular, there is a nerve called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of 12 nerves that in medicine we call cranial nerves. The vagus nerve is cranial nerve 10. It has many branches and it does many things. We are not going to talk about that. We're going to talk particularly about what happens here. So that capsule around the liver is innervated by the vagus nerve. And once you get hit, that nerve gets activated. When the vagus nerve gets activated, it does a couple of things. One of the things I want to mention is that the autonomic nervous system controls involuntary. Keyword involuntary, and that will come in handy when I talk about what happens when you get shot. The involuntary physiological process, you have no control over that. It is the same kind of system that controls your flight or fight, but the opposite end of it is what the vagus nerve does. It slows everything down. Okay, so when you get hit and the vagus nerve is activated, it actually slows down things like your blood pressure, your heart rate, and it activates things that normally you wouldn't need when you are in a fight or flight. So imagine when everything slows down, you are not able to fight or flee. Now, depending on the individual, nerves usually need to be conducted, meaning that messages need to be sent over the nerve. Most of the time, this message is delayed. So most of the time, the message is delayed. So if you realize, most body shot or liver shots actually have a delayed response. And that's exactly what happened with Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Because of the delayed response, many people think that it was a decision Garcia took not to continue the fight. But once he was hit, there was really nothing he could do. And if you remember what I just said, it's involuntary. You have no control over. This is the exact same thing that happened with Oscar de la Hoya. And if you watch the footage, once Oscar realized that it was over, he was very mad. But when it happened, he really had no control. This is the exact same thing that happened to Comey. Same thing that happened to Luke Campbell. It just kind of paralyzes you. You have no control. So it is a thing. Ryan Garcia was not faking it. Ryan Garcia did not give up the fight. It wasn't a fixed fight. There was a physiological response that he had no control over. And let's put the liver aside. I mean, Tank was going to pummel him if he had stayed there, right? Because at that point, he just couldn't do anything. So it was a good decision to let the count go so that Tank wins. But the liver shot is a thing. So in summary, when you get hit on the right upper quadrant, where the liver sits, right behind the rib cage, the liver is encapsulated and is innervated by a nerve called the vagus nerve, which is one of 12 nerves called the cranial nerves. The vagus nerve kind of slows everything down, kind of the opposite of what fight or flight does. And because the nerve message needs to be transmitted, it takes time sometimes. That's why it's delayed. And then it will look like the person had control and decided not to fight. Now, that's not the case. They actually had no control. So this is a liver shot in summary. My thoughts on the fight quickly. I thought that Tank was going to win for several reasons. He was fat. I thought the way he is in terms of how smallish he is, and that's exactly what he hit. He could run around Ryan Garcia, and that's what he did. He hit him, run. Garcia was big, but just couldn't use it because Tank was just running all around him. And he got that big shot. Tank has a power shot, and it got him, and that was it. He couldn't do anything about it. But it was great for boxing, and I'm happy it happened. Hopefully the other shows will also happen. I'm talking about Crawford Spence's in Noe 14. I think that's going to happen. And all the big ones, hopefully they happen. But this is liver shot in a nutshell, explained medically. Hey, if you like this, please don't forget to subscribe. If you are watching via YouTube, or also just follow us on Facebook. HTV Boxing, and this is the Boxing Doc.